for a native tribe or organization didn't know the accurate history, didn't know anything about genocide and boarding school and all of that kind of stuff. And so that's another reason why I wanted to share it, because part of our challenges that we still come up against today is like our erasure. So not only were we attempted to be erased from the land, but we're also erased from history books, and sometimes even erased from classrooms and erased from society, in different ways. And so a lot of people like don't even know that we are still here. Like the name of that video is "We Shall Remain." Like we are still here, and we forever will be here, right? We shall remain. And so that was another reason why I wanted to show that. And so it's important because, like so many of you shared, it does give context to like what's happening currently. Because I always say, what happened in the past is called colonization, right? All of that historical trauma is called colonization. Colonization was based in white supremacy, right? And some of the examples of colonization, the loss of land and loss of way of life and loss of life and all those things, chemical warfare through the introduction of alcohol to our people, biological warfare with the introduction of smallpox and different diseases like that. The boarding schools where our children were stolen and taken away, many of which have died, many of which the graves are being discovered today in current time. All of that is important to understand the context of what we're still fighting today, which is colonialism. So colonization is what happened in the past, and colonialism is another ism that plays out today, just like racism and sexism and classism and ageism and ableism and all of the other isms, right? Colonialism is another ism that we continue to fight against today. And that's important to grasp and understand, especially today, like your group, really trying to address truth and reconciliation, and then what comes after that, reparations, and really understanding what that means and how that can play out today in current society. So our organization, then, the Native Wellness Institute, like I said, we're celebrating our 23rd anniversary today, and this is pretty pretty awesome. Like, we're 23 years old. And it's funny because our 20th anniversary, we had all these plans for all these big celebrations. And then the pandemic hit. And then, none of that happened. And we all went on Zoom. But anyway, so we're going to have some big celebrations this year for that. But we exist as an organization to help our people to heal, because we know that where there has been trauma, healing is the answer. Like that sounds so simple, right? Where there has been trauma, healing is the answer. So as an organization, that's what we do. And we do that through providing training, through facilitating gatherings in communities or within organizations, within tribal systems, helping to educate our people on trauma and how that's connected to behaviors and how that's connected to healing. So it's kind of like we try to help our people connect the dots, and in different arenas. And so, for example, some of the work that we do, we have a curriculum that we call Wellness in the Workplace. And so we developed that curriculum because in our travels, we saw unhealthy behaviors play out in the workplace. And we all spend, a lot of time every day at work, and we wanted to help make that a better place for people. So that's one of the areas that we focus on. Another area is we do lots of healthy relationships development, and the same kind of thing, where there has been trauma, it leads to lots of unhealthy behaviors, and then that contributes to unhealthy relationships. So again, we try to provide that education and help people connect the dots, and then provide opportunities and tools for healing. And then we do lots of youth leadership development, working with our young people and encouraging them to learn and live by their cultural values and things like that. And then we do lots of other things as well, designing specific opportunities for our people to heal. That's really what the foundation of our work is. And so our work is based on our cultural values and our cultural strengths. That's the foundation of our work. You know, our ancestors lived on this earth for thousands of years and lived very well. And so we keep those traditional values at the center and at the core of our work. And then providing the education of how trauma has impacted us, some of the unspoken rules that we were raised with, and then providing the opportunities to break through some of those rules. So, for example, it's just not Native people. All people that grew up in trauma, maybe violence or addictions or poverty or things like that, when we grow up in spaces like that, we learn some unspoken rules. And actually, I'll type them in the chat. Some of those unspoken rules are: don't talk, don't trust, and don't feel. I just put them in the chat. And this information really comes from, there's a woman named Jane Middleton Moss, and she was instrumental in the Adult Children of Alcoholics movement. And when she studied family systems that were affected by alcoholism, these were some of the findings that she found. Don't talk, don't trust, don't feel. And this is critical to understand, because when we bring people together and we're helping them connect the dots between trauma and behavior and healing, and we learn about these unspoken rules, it's so critical to understand, because when we want people to heal, or we want to create this safe space for healing, like, what do we need to do to heal? Like, talk, trust, and feel. And if you just spent your whole lifetime learning how not to do these things, like, we have to have that awareness then, and create create ways to break those rules, to break through those rules. And we do that in our work. And first is like having awareness that these rules even exist, right? It's not that our parents wrote them on a piece of paper and made us memorize them, right? Like we learned them through the behaviors. So those are just some examples of some of the work that we do and the information that we provide to help our own people connect the dots. Because what happens is, when you work with tribal people, everyone will tell, like, if you use those words, historical trauma, everyone is going to tell you examples of what that is. But often what's lacking is the connection between trauma and the behaviors, and then the connection between the behaviors and healing, and how we go about doing that. Because a part of colonization was like, there was different waves of colonization. And when wiping us off the face of the earth didn't work, and we were still here, then the colonization methods changed. And one of the methods was outlawing, making it illegal for us to speak our language or to practice our culture. Like, it was against the law for us to do that. And people would lose their life or be put in prison for doing things like speaking their own language or practicing their culture. And thankfully, many people did it anyway. They took it underground, if you will, or they did it when the Indian agents weren't watching us, because we were watched by the military. Even my grandma used to tell us the story where from the south end of our reservation to the north end is 30 miles. And they traveled 5 days and nights in a wagon, because my grandparents never had a car. They traveled by horse and wagon. And they traveled 5 days and nights. And one of my uncles was with them. And they got to the north end of the reservation only for the Indian agent to refused their permission to leave the reservation. So they had to turn around and travel 5 days and nights back. This is in my grandmother's time. Like, this is in the 1900s, right? And those stories are still alive in our families. And so when we talk about historical trauma, that contributes to intergenerational trauma. Somebody said it, I think it was Anita who said it, understanding when that trauma goes unhealed, then it's passed to the next generation, right? When that goes unhealed, then it's passed to the next generation. That's intergenerational trauma. And again, this is why the Native Wellness Institute exists. And the work that we do is helping our people to heal. My kids are coming home. And anyway, so that is the work that we do. And so I wanted to shift a little bit, and actually that word shift, we always say shift happens, SHIFT, shift happens. And so I'm going to shift a little bit now and just talk about the work of the Future Generations Collaborative. So we call it the FGC for short. So we were founded as a collaboration a little over 10 years ago. And we are a collaboration of several Native serving organizations, along with Multnomah County Health Department, Portland State University School of Public Health, and a few other organizations. And the reason we were formed is because several epidemiologists at Multnomah County Health Department noticed some health disparities within our community that were not being addressed. And so we got some people together and decided to form this collaboration as a way to address some of these health disparities. And we have grown and morphed into several different areas since that time. So our core, or kind of our foundation beginnings, were about helping to promote healthy pregnancies that would contribute to healthy families. That's really what the work was about. And by doing so, addressing substance-affected pregnancies. And so because of some of the history that I just talked about, and because of the understanding that alcohol was given to our people as chemical warfare. And I say that because alcohol was given especially to our men to subdue them, so they wouldn't fight back or resist or do anything when we were forcibly removed and forcibly placed, onto reservations. And so so that's why many of us call it chemical warfare. And then how that continues to impact our community. So it's actually also one of the stereotypes that impacts our community as well, right? Because oftentimes when people think of Native Americans, they think casinos. That's one of the things they think. Or they'll think, oh, they're a bunch of drunk people, right? That's one of the lasting negative stereotypes of our people. When in fact, and Portland, Oregon actually is one of the meccas. In the 70s was this huge sobriety movement that went across our communities. And Portland, Oregon is home to one of the first Native specific treatment centers that is still open today. And that is NARA, the Native American Rehabilitation Association. And NARA actually also was one of the first treatment centers that welcomed women and children. So one of the first treatment centers in the country to welcome women and children. So that's pretty awesome. So hundreds and thousands of people across the country have come to Portland, Oregon to start their sobriety journeys. That's pretty awesome. And one of the things that we have found because of that sobriety movement that began in the 1970s, we actually have more sober people per our population than any other population. However, because negativity is so powerful, we still have the negative stereotypes about our people of, being alcoholic and drunk and all that kind of stuff. And, that's okay. People just need to catch up with the times and, realize how amazing we are. I always say that. So, and first they have to realize that we're still here, right? That we are still here. So just today, I talked about the training that we provided yesterday and today, and I made a comment and I said something like, for some of you, this might be the first time that you've ever had professional development training provided by Native people. And for several people, it was like that was the first time. And for some people, and even in this process of Barbie's Village, and I'll get to that in a little bit, even in the process of Barbie's Village, I have told people this may be the first time that you've met a real live Native person, right? So just think about those kinds of things. So we are still here. We are living amongst you. We're your neighbors. We may work with you or your family members or, you know, all of that kind of stuff. And I'm really happy for opportunities like this, because I feel like, you know, part of the answer to truth and reconciliation and reparations is becoming friends with each other first, right? And as friends, we can then step up and be allies if we choose to do that. And we can step up to, you know, really truly make our communities a better place to live. And so the FGC, then, we do lots of things in the community to provide education. We do lots of things in the community to provide connection and to promote opportunities for healing, similar to the work of the Native Wellness Institute. And one of the things that happened that then relates to Barbie's Village is we have community members involved in the work of the Future Generations Collaborative, and they're called elders and natural helpers. And they're kind of like our eyes and ears in the community. And 5 years ago, in this past February, one of our natural helpers passed away from a brain aneurysm. And she left behind 4 children and a husband. Her name was Barbie. Her husband's name is Ken. So we had our own native Barbie and Ken. And she was always interested in serving our community members that were homeless. And she always found it ironic that, you know, how could tribal people be homeless, like homeless in their own land? And she herself and her family experienced chronic homelessness for a variety of reasons. And so after she passed, we met and we wanted to do something like to keep her legacy alive. And so we visited and brainstormed, and we came up with this idea of Barbie's Village. So keeping her name alive and keeping the vision that she had of serving our people that were living on the streets or that were couch surfing. So Barbie's Village then became a vision of a tiny home village for Native people living in this area. So in our work at the FGC, we kind of have four areas of the work. We have a policy mode that works on policy stuff. We have an evaluation mode, we have an education mode, and then we have a community engagement mode. And so my organization takes the lead on the community engagement mode. So Barbie's Village then landed in my lap, even though I knew zero about housing, I knew zero about tiny villages or anything, but I'm still learning. Anyway, so it landed in my lap, and I didn't even know like how to start or what to do. And people that I would reach out to would say, oh, go talk to this person, go talk to this person. And so I just started talking to whoever would listen about Barbie's Village. And one day I was at the Bison Coffee House having a meeting with somebody else about something else, and someone else came in that this person knew. And anyway, they connected us and we had coffee, and I shared the story about Barbie's Village. And, we said, oh yeah, we got to get together and talk about it. And then the pandemic hit, and, everything shut down and all of that. Well, the person that I shared the story of Barbie's Village reached out one day and just said, Jolene, I can't stop thinking about Barbie's Village, and I would like to connect you with some people that I think, can help. And I'm like, okay, great. So we connected on Zoom, and long story short, she was involved in the Levin Land and Housing Coalition. Some of you may have heard of their work. And they had heard that the Presbyterian, that Laurelhurst, the former Laurelhurst Presbyterian Church, was considering, doing something with their land. And anyway, we got all connected. And for the last year and a half, we have been meeting monthly and doing tons of work for the potential of a land back gifting. So there's a whole land back movement. You can Google it. I'll again put it in the chat. Land back. You can Google the land back movement and learn more about that. But that is the ultimate goal, that the Laurelhurst Presbyterian Church will gift their land and building to the Future Generations Collaborative, where we will then build Barbie's Village, the tiny home village. And so in the last year and a half, we have met with our core team. We meet monthly, and then we have some subcommittees that meet. We've done tons of presentations to the Board of Trustees and all these different layers of the church. We've done house meetings with the neighbors around Laurelhurst. We've met with the Laurelhurst Neighborhood Association, several presentations to them as well. We've met with the neighbors that are like right around the church right now. And just helping to like build relationships. Some of our other partners have gone door to door, trying to educate about Barbie's Village. And so it's been just a very, very like dynamic and heartwarming process, like to have allies like truly step up and do stuff for us, honestly. And I tell them this, like, this has been the first time that allies have ever done this, like, for me personally, or anything that I have been involved with. So it's just like, whoa, it's pretty amazing, actually. And in the very beginning, not everybody wants a tiny village, a tiny home village next to them, right? And at the very beginning, Melissa Reed from Levin, Land and Housing Coalition, she reached out to one of her mentors who also was building a tiny home village in their church. And the first thing that her mentor told her, he said, get an attorney. He said, when we were opening up our tiny home village, they received over 200 lawsuits from neighbors. And so when she said that, I was just like, oh my God, like, I don't want to deal with that. Like, I don't want to deal with that. So we like paid attention to that. And we did like extra work to get to know the neighbors and to let them know, who we are and our vision and what we were trying to do. Like, we took the time, and then meeting with them again on Zoom, meeting with them in person, getting to know them and them getting to know us, welcoming them for their input, and all of that. And so at the very beginning, like, it wasn't all rosy, right? It was like, some courageous conversations there. And so now, a year and a half later, like, these huge wins. So this was like back in December, I think it was. One of the neighbors sent us a card and welcoming us as their future neighbor, and sent a check for $1,000. Like, isn't that amazing? And then we've had other neighbors, stop by when they see us there. Can we come and volunteer to help pull weeds? Or, we're here to volunteer to do whatever. Like, it's just been amazing. On this past October, which is the month that Indigenous Peoples Day falls under, we had a big celebration that we called Barbie's Village Meet and Greet. And it was also an Indigenous Peoples Day celebration that we held at Barbie's Village. And we invited neighbors, and we invited the Native community. We invited the Presbyterian community to come. And we had like over 500 people show up. And we fed them, and we gifted people, and we had dancers, and we had speeches, and it was like this awesome day. And people were sharing how they can't wait until the next one, and it was really awesome. So in part, we were like introducing them to who we were, and they couldn't believe that they got dinner for free, and like, we were living by our values. We were showing people who we are. And that's important, because when I talk about those negative stereotypes that are still out there about our people, those actually stem way back from even in the US Declaration of Independence. in that document, it calls our people merciless Indian savages. Like that's in that document today, right? And that is an important piece to understand, because that label made it okay for churches and the government, like, to do horrible things to us because we were labeled as savage and we were thought of as savage, right? And that trickles down, today. And I talk about the erasure, erasure from the land, erasure from history, erasure from books and society, from schools. I think about my boys. I have 5 children. I gave birth to 4 and I raised a nephew. And when they were in school, one of my sons came home one day, and he was in kindergarten. He came home from school one day and he said, "Mom, I don't want to be brown no more." And I said, "Well, why? Why do you say that?" And then he told me about what kids were saying to him at school. So I had to go talk to his teacher. Her name was Miss Love, of all things. I had to go talk to Miss Love and tell her about my son's experience. And then, interestingly, not too long after that, one of my other sons, well, 2 of them actually, were taken out of their classroom and put in this other class called English as a Second Language, ESL. So they came home one day and they told me about it. And I'm like, what? So then I had to call the school again and go to the school actually in person and say, sadly, the main language we speak in our home is like our colonizers' language, English. And why are you trying to take my boys out of the classroom and put in this other class? And, and I understand that, like, these are other attempts of erasure that continue today, right? So I'm just kind of, bouncing around and giving you different examples, but it all goes back to, like, why Barbie's Village is so important, right? So Barbie's Village is going to be a village specifically, we want to focus on women and children first, homeless women and children first, so that we can give them a chance to be successful in this world. So we can be those aunties and uncles that are going to wrap around them and help to lift them up, help to give them the resources, and help to give them this chance, because we know there's lots of factors that are still trying to hold them down, right? And in Oregon, I don't know if you know this, but Oregon is one of the leading states that right now is declaring racism as a public health issue, not just a public health issue, but a public health emergency, right? And that's related to chronic homelessness and all of the other social determinants of health that our people experience, that all Black and Brown people experience. So Barbie's Village then is going to be the safe haven. It's going to be a space that is safe, a space that the residents there can, immerse themselves in culture and the other early childhood programming that will happen there. It will be a time where, again, those wraparound services can help them get that strong foundation underneath them so that they can move forward in this life and be successful, just like those young people you saw in the video at the very beginning, right? It's that hope, and it's that foundation to help them be successful. So what we're doing right now is we're working with a local architect firm that has a descendant from the Umatilla tribe. You know that part? My friend's sitting right behind me. She's from Umatilla. She's a local architect, and she heard about Barbie's Village and volunteered her time and has been amazing. So her firm is helping us to design the tiny home village and make that part a reality. And then at the same time, we're beefing up some of our early childhood programming. So Multnomah County Health Department has given us some funding for a program that's called Help Me Grow. That's currently happening at Barbie's Village. And because of the amazing work that we've done this past year, they're going to be increasing that funding so we can increase our efforts in that, working with 0 to 7, mainly 0 to 5. And so that's exciting. We're also out of Barbie's Village, the current building. We're also operating some of our public health work. We've been doing lots of COVID response during the pandemic, helping with vaccinations and providing support to families experiencing COVID. So that is happening as well. We're currently cohabitating the building with Tillamook Preschool and another church that's called Maker's Church, both of which are leaving. Maker's Church is leaving in April, and the preschool will be leaving in between May and June. And then we'll have the whole building to ourselves and able to kind of expand and our programming, things like that. So we're very exciting. We're going to be starting are expanding our early childhood services for this fall to include a daycare center, which one does not exist in the Native community. So that's exciting. And then we're also starting our fundraising for Barbie's Village, like to build the actual tiny homes. And so we're like designing what that fundraising effort is going to look like right now. So the Future Generations Collaborative, we've been operating as a collaborative. So a collaborative of all these different organizations, but just in the past, probably 6 months or so, we've applied for our own nonprofit status and we're becoming our own organization. And so the gifting of the church and the land will go to the Future Generations Collaborative. So that's kind of the plan for that. So our Barbie's Village core team, as we call it, consists of like 4 of us from the Native community, and there's about 6 others representing the Board of Trustees of the Presbytery of the Cascades, and then several other church members of the Presbyterian Church. Like I said, we meet monthly and we just figure out our plan of what's happening next and what's happening next. And then probably towards the fall of this year or so, I'll find out more information on that tomorrow in our meeting. But the Board of Trustees, who has the final vote, hopefully like by this fall, they will do that vote and if they're going to gift us the land or not. Of course, it's leaning in that direction right now, and that is the end goal. And we're doing the work to make sure that it's, if not a unanimous, at least an almost unanimous vote for that gifting. So I just talked for like an hour straight and I just want to pause right now. And I know I just shared a lot, but is there any comments or questions?
Just hold up your hand and ask the question, friend.
I have a question. How do you connect with your people? Like the ones that you give support to, how do you find them and connect with them?
Oh gosh. Well, it's already by word of mouth. Like people are already hearing about Barbie's Village. We've kind of like made the announcement in the community and stuff like that. So it's totally by word of mouth. Like we don't even have a list yet of who could potentially live there, but we already have people calling us and telling us, I know somebody, I know so-and-so, and it's interesting because even homeless people, we have stereotypes about homeless people, right? And so there's a young woman that has 2 children. She works a full-time job. Like she had one major thing happen and boom, like she's homeless. She's sleeping in her car while her children are staying in someone else's home, right? Like, and she works full time. She's not your, the stereotypical homeless person that people think of, right? So it really has been like word of mouth and people hearing about what we're doing and like, oh, I know someone that can live there. And we're like, we're still a ways off of, making this a reality, but, so that's kind of how we connect.
What about for the Wellness Institute, for the classes that you do there? How do you connect?
Oh, okay. So we connect, one, because of our reputation. We connect with others. We have an email listserv. We send out there. We have a presence on social media where, we tell people this is what we're doing. And then because of our reputation and the work that we do, like tribes or different organizations will contact us and say, hey, can you come in and do XYZ? So throughout a year's time, we serve like between 100 and 125 different tribes or organizations that we go to them And then we serve another probably close to 5,000 people that come to us for our different trainings and things like that. Hi, Beth.
So how do you how far afield from Portland are these tribes that you work with?
Oh, we work with tribes across North America.
Oh,
Yeah.
really?
Yeah. So across the US, we were just in Florida a few weeks ago, but
And you take training to them.
Mhm.
Cool.
We take training to them, or we host trainings either on Zoom or in person, and people come to us. And actually, back in February, we held our first in-person training at Barbie's Village. So that was pretty awesome.
Very cool.
Mhm.
Are there others who have questions or comments? Judy,
can I jump in? Sorry.
Go ahead.
Is that okay, Pat? Jolene, hi.
Hi, Beth.
I'm so sorry. I had another commitment until 8 o'clock, but I'm so glad you're here, and I'll look at the recording. And I just want folks to know this is a very special person you've been meeting with tonight. She has been a mentor and a teacher to me for many years, and I just have so much deep respect and love for her and the work of the Native Wellness Institute and Future Generations Collaborative and Barbie's Village. And I had the great honor and privilege of getting to know Barbie through the community health worker training that we did of like 7-8 years ago, something like that. So
Yeah.
it's just amazing, like, to see. I'm gonna cry. I mean, it's just like so heartening to see how Barbie's Village has come together and all of the community support, and something that I would encourage us as Ainsworth, to think about how we might want to support their work and partner with them. And just wanted to say hi.
Thank you, Beth. Ah, that's nice.
Well, one of the things I guess the way you work is so impressive to me, and particularly the Future Generations Collaborative. And I don't know if Judy Petrie, you want to chime in and talk about what we're hopefully going to do with the land that is around our church. But to me, it's a real challenge and inspiration to think about, and that's what we're trying to focus on, Jolene, is what is the call to us? How do we participate in repair and reparations? I will let Anne raise her question, and then it will come back to that, if that's all right.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, I'm a part of a very small group of people who are growing at Ainsworth. We're called the Indigenous Peoples Action Group, and you can help us come up with a better title if you like one. But we have background and strengths in early childhood ed and things like that. And one of the ways we would like to encourage our congregation to be a part of the reimagining, maybe even, of who Indigenous people are, is to provide books for children and families that portray families as Indigenous people would want them portrayed. We have purchased some and are trying to tell the congregation about them. But like fry bread, some of the ones indigenous people are just portrayed so beautifully. And jingle skirt, I think it is, jingle dress, and we are water protectors, many special books. And I personally would relish the opportunity to help think through what I need to learn about the history of our country and the heritage that children who are from the early peoples, what I would like to help them learn that. So what would you say about all that? I mean, that's a lot. Sorry, just 2 seconds.
No, thank you. Well, your books is awesome. Like that is an awesome gesture. And if you're suggesting donating books to our early childhood programming, like, we would love that and welcome that.
Yes, we are suggesting that. We just want to be sure that they are appropriate. We're
Yeah.
very sensitive to the idea that there have been a lot of stereotypes promoted in the past that were
Yeah.
horrific. And so we did have one member, not one member, he was someone we knew of through the day center downstairs, who is an active Indigenous person, Native American. And he was so excited about the books we had. So we've been trying to let the congregation know about them, see them. And so in November, yeah, that's the day, the month, right, for Indigenous people. We're hoping then to really focus on it and encourage people
Nice.
to
Nice.
give and participate. So I'm Ann Nelson, and people have my number. So I would be very, very honored to help you.
Oh, awesome. Thank you, Anne. Thank you.
I'm also a part of that group. So
Great, Janet.
the reason that we started the group was because we were going to a group with Ecumenical Ministries Oregon, and the question was raised, where did we get the land for our churches?
Right.
And that was such,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm shocked, I'm horrified that I never asked that question, but it was such a big question that I just felt I had to do something.
Mm,
Mm-hmm.
nice. Well, and I think with awareness, right? Like that's a natural next step, is that reparations piece. And I think for reparations, I mean, really that's what like the Presbyterian Church is trying to figure out, right? And wanting, as you know, we've had Presbyterian Church members say things like, you know, we have to give this land back. Like if we're saying that we're doing God's work, or we're doing this work, like we have to do something for, you know, for reparations. And of course, like the need is so great out there, right? But one of the reasons why reparations is so important, and why this land back movement is so important, because I can't wait to, like, you know, stand on top of my house and yell from the top of my lungs that this church gave this land and building back. You know, I can't do it yet. We have to say things like, potentially they're going to give the land back, or in the future they might do this. Like, we have to be careful with our language, because it isn't set in stone yet. And because there's been so many times where it's looking like it's going to go one way, and then the rug is pulled out from underneath us. And we've had conversations about that as well. But I can't wait to let people know, because it's what it does. This might be a win for the Future Generations Collaborative, but this win is going to be beyond that. This is going to be a win for Indian country. Anytime there's a land back, it's time for celebration for everyone, because it gives us the hope, like, yeah, like somebody won, like somebody got something, like, and it gives hope to others of what could potentially happen in other spaces, right? Like, and these wins are important when we deal with racism and oppression on the daily, right? Like, these wins are so important for even for our well-being. Yeah, Anne, I see your hand up, and then Anita, I see your hand up.
Anita, go first. No?
No, I'm going. I just had to unmute. My question is, you know, we see tiny villages going up around the city, and I'm curious what your vision is for your village in terms of building a culture and community, and then what long-range goals are. Because this is transitional housing, right? Or is it?
Well, we're still in that deciding factor. Yeah, it'll be transitional. Like, it won't be long-term housing for sure. It'll be, you know, transitional, and we're deciding, you know, how long is that transition going to be, right, for someone to get their footing, and, you know, all of that. We've had some focus groups with people in the community, with Native people experiencing homelessness, and one of the things that we heard loud and clear is like, not everybody wants to live inside of a house, right? That was kind of like some assumptions even that we were making. And so we were like, oh, well, that's interesting. So when we were working with the architect and designing it, we actually had like teepees or some like yurt kind of structures that we would put up as well. And then we've learned in this whole process, like, will the city approve something like that? Anyway, so we're not like into that nitty gritty weeds yet, but we will be shortly. But those are some examples of how we're trying to be like culturally responsive to our community. Some of the other design includes things like an outdoor playscape for the children, includes, you know, community garden space, includes space where we can like have a salmon, you know, pit or a sweat lodge or things like that. And then the building itself will become kind of like the community center space. So that's where the early childhood programming will happen, and, you know, all of the other programming and things like that that will happen. So that's kind of where we are like right now.
Oh, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anne?
Well, my question was then, as a former long-term Presbyterian, who is it? Is it the presbytery? Is it the church board? Is it who should we contact to give our support and ask how we can help?
Well, it's the Presbytery, the Cascade Board
Okay.
of Trustees that will be the ultimate people that will have the vote.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay.
And David Jewell. So David Jewell is on the Board of Trustees. He's not the chairperson. He's a board of directors on the trustees, and he's on our Barbie's Village core team. His name is David Jewell. And I can't remember right now who their president is, or I forgot the title, whatever titles that they use. It's not David Jewell, but David Jewell is the one. He's on the Board of Trustees and he sits on our Barbie's Village core team.
Okay. Session. It's
Yeah.
the session, clerk of session.
Mhm.
So the Presbytery Board of,
Trustees.
no, this is the area, Presbytery Board of the,
Cascades.
there
Oh,
you go.
oh, Presbytery of the Cascades. Yeah.
I'm from Michigan. So sorry, Cascades does not roll off my tongue as Great Lakes does. Thank you. Okay, so those are things we can all know about. And yeah, we can look into that.
Awesome. Thank you. And
Okay.
Jennifer, you have your hand up?
Yeah, when you're talking about wellness, Jillian, and thank you for everything that you've shared tonight. I find it so beautiful that one of the ways to restore wholeness for a people who have experienced so much trauma generationally, individually, and communally is that culture is medicine, right? That language is medicine, that spirituality is medicine, that reclaiming traditions is medicine to help recreate wholeness for people. And they never, ever should have experienced the traumas that they did. And I just find it so beautiful that, I mean, I'm ashamed to say this, but I will confess before all of you that as a white person growing up in Portland, like I thought that Native America was in the past, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I thought that I didn't know
Mm-hmm.
that there were that Native people were still here. I didn't know. I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't taught that, but I also didn't know or didn't ask. And so, but you are here and you are us and you are with us, and just reclaiming and holding up those beautiful traditions. I mean, it's made me wonder, would it be weird? Would it be, Jillian, let me ask you, I've wondered about myself taking classes in one of the languages that's native to this area, because I was born here in Portland. I feel some affinity here, but I also recognize myself as a settler colonizer here.
Mm-hmm.
If I were to learn a language, would that be helpful to like keep the language alive? Or for me as a white person, is it like, that's not for me to do? I don't know. I've wondered about that, you know?
Yeah. Well, thank you for asking that question. And thank you for acknowledging that like you didn't know that we still existed, because a lot of people don't say that, but but it's the truth, right? And it's a part of, like, not only were we erased, but we have also been historicized. So people only think about us in the past, and they don't think about us in the present time, unless it is like around a casino or, you know, something like that. So that's one thing. And then the second thing, in terms of a language, this is what I would say. I think it's appropriate if you want to learn like the language of like the land where you live, like the neighborhood, and learn that kind of history, or even, you know, maybe learn like a greeting or something like that. I wouldn't immerse yourself in a language class, because for several reasons. One, a lot of I'm not a fluent speaker in my traditional language. I would call myself like I practice my language. I'm learning my language, right? And a lot of our people don't have the opportunity to do that for many reasons, right? They don't have access, or they hold on to their own, what I call cultural pain and shame. Like, lots of our people have pain and shame around not knowing anything about their culture, right? Not knowing one word in their language, or one song, or one dance, or having any kind of connection to their culture. And that paralyzes them. That shame and that pain, like, paralyzes them from learning that. And that's part of our healing, right? We have to do that letting go of that cultural pain and shame. That's a part of our healing work to do. So I would much rather you encourage a Native person to hold that space and to take that language class.
Others?
Thank you.
Comment or questions? Well, if not, I'm going to go back to my question that I asked Jillian, if I can remember it, Jillian. We here at Ainsworth have some property attached to, that we own, attached to the church. And Judy Petrie, who's on the call, has been a real persistent and courageous voice in saying we have to do something with this land. And she's been part of, in the past, we've been part of the land trust movement, et cetera. And for me, at least, listening to the process that you've gone through is very instructive in terms of particularly the community and the neighborhood, and what we need to do to ensure that there is a, you might say, a win-win situation. We're not sure exactly where this is going. The congregation has just voted to move forward in exploration. And I don't know, Judy, if there's anything you want to comment on or ask Jillian in particular that would help inform the work we have ahead of us. Don't mean to put you on the spot, Judy.
No, that's fine. Well, a lot of what she expressed about the process, as far as the NIMBYism and, you know, the neighborhood meetings, and my background is I worked for 35 years at Home Forward. Jillian was the deputy executive director, began as a resident of public housing, and worked my way to the top, as some people say. And so when I left, I was deputy executive director, and I worked a lot in the community, forming partnerships for different resources for our residents, and ran the Section 8 and public housing programs there. And so had to go out many times, many evening meetings into neighborhoods, communities that had issues with our residents. It wasn't issues with the residents as much as it was their issue. Trying to change and gentrify the communities. And so I commend you, the example that you used about how the people that were against you initially and then came and said, what can we do to help? We had a couple of those experiences as well. And so we do have this land that's next door to our church, and we have been talking about trying to address the homeless crisis in the community and wanting to do something. And so, as Pat said, we just recently had a vote from our congregation to look at the feasibility of what could be built on that land. And we worked with an architect and had a feasibility study completed. And so we know how many units we can place there and what the code and the permitting process would be and allow us to do. But what we haven't decided is who will we serve there.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And so we had been talking about many things, HIV day center clients, because we already have a partnership with EMO and the HIV Day Center. We talked about transitional housing. We talked about transgender. That was another one that we discussed. And we've been talking about this since 2017.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, with the pandemic, that kind of interrupted the flow of this. But now that we're through that process, we're forming a working group, and we have about 9 people at church that are interested. We were original members of the 11 Land and Housing cohort, now the Tri-County Coalition. And I'm going to be meeting, Pastor Lynn and I are going to be meeting with Julia Nielsen and Sarah Luce on April 4th to explore some options and ideas. I'm hoping Julia, since she started with Portsmouth, she's kind of the guru of how you do this. And so anyway, that's where we're going to begin with them and kind of get their ideas on process, and then make a decision of, at some point with the congregation, who we will house, who we will serve, and moving forward. But I've had a lot of experience in working with a lot of different social service organizations and in the community, and know about that process. And lately we had been talking about the Native and Indigenous as a option for us. So we'll see how it goes. There's no shortage of need. That's basically
that's for sure.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing all that. That's super exciting. And I want to share a potential resource for you that came to us at one of our presentations to the neighborhood association. We learned about an organization called We Shine, and I forget where it's all those letters stand for something, and I can't remember what all they stand for. But anyway, they get funding from the county to do temporary temporary tiny home pods. And so they came across our radar, and we've met with them. We actually kind of wrote a collaborative grant and got funded. And then we kind of had to slow down because we got too excited about, doing anything at Barbie's Village just yet. But anyway, if you partner with them, they have the funding to cover everything, to build the tiny homes, to build the fence, to have the staff that will staff it, all of that. So that might be an agency that you might want to partner with. Of course, if in your voting, if you wanted to serve the Native community, we would be happy to, partner with you to go in that direction as well. So I think that's just super exciting.
Okay, we're coming towards the end of our hour and a half, and I don't know if anybody else. Linda, you have a question.
Not a question. I just wanted to say that We Shine is the organization that the Park Rose United Church of Christ is partnering with.
Oh yeah.
They have the village there, and that's We Shine is the organization that is their partner doing that work. And the other thing is, I know you know this, Jolene, but But I've been told, and I hope this is true, that there's about 40 to 50,000 urban Indians in Portland.
Mhm.
And it's the 9th largest urban Indian community in the country.
Mhm.
So-
Yes, it is. And we have a high percentage of people living on the streets. And because of, all the stuff that we've talked about in the last hour and a half, like a lot of our people aren't accessing the services, right? They're and we know that we've been involved with like this monthly effort to like we contribute to a monthly effort that just feeds a lot of homeless people, and we like intentionally search out Native people, and that's what we're finding, like they're not accessing the services. So even though we know that we have high percentages of our people that are homeless, they're not coming in for the resources for all different kind of reasons.
Okay, thank you so much, Jolene. And I'm wondering if you could put in the chat kind of your contact information if people want to get involved and be allies to the collaborative and Barbie's Village. And that way Anne and Janet can follow up with you in terms of the Indigenous Action Network as well. And you've just given me, and I think the rest of the people on the call, some real food for thought as we look at how do we participate, how do we respond in terms of reparations, and what is it our particular congregation is called to do. So thank you so very much.
Well, thank you. I put my email in the chat, and in terms of reparations, like we would appreciate when we start our fundraising efforts, how we like to do it like grassroots and not just rely on the government for things.
Right.
One person telling 5 people to donate $25, like that type of thing. And if anyone is called to help us do something like that, we would love your participation. So thank you all for spending, your evening here. And thank you for the invitation to be here.
Okay, take good care.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jolene. Bye, everybody.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed you.